Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Sports Beastie, the new YouTube page, to get these videos out to you on this beautiful Saturday, December 17th. We talked Minnesota and Indianapolis. I want to dig into Baltimore going to Cleveland this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. But before I do, make sure this new YouTube page, you can like, subscribe, share the video, do whatever you got to do. Because as I said, I'm going to start sharing some more behind the scenes stuff, like maybe the process of how I get to my notes or how do I get the final score predictions, everything from start to finish. I'd like to think I'm an open book, but let's talk about football, shall we? When we look at this game, Baltimore's going to Cleveland. Kickoff is at 4:30 p.m. And I know what you're thinking right now. I'm thinking it too. I can't wait to see what happens in Buffalo with Miami coming to town. We saw this morning there was I don't know what's going on, and it's taking away from these first two games, but I'd be lying if I said that wasn't on my brain first and foremost, but we will get there. Let's talk about the Ravens going to Cleveland. Kickoff is at 4:30 p.m. in Cleveland at, I believe, First Energy Stadium. Right now, the over-under sits at 38 points. It's an odd total, right? 37, 38. That seems strange. And right now, Baltimore, last I looked, when this line opened, Baltimore was minus points. Right now, it's kind of a pick 'em, and I would imagine that Baltimore, at a certain point here, truth be told, I'm going to look it up as we record this because this is shocking to me that Baltimore on the road in Cleveland is getting 2.5 points, and that's crazy to me because when you look at that, Cleveland lost to Cincinnati last week, so they've been effectively eliminated. Yeah, Baltimore's getting 2.5 points. That's crazy because I have them to win. So you're telling me I can get the Baltimore Ravens plus points and I have them to win outright altogether? Hey, we learn and we see new things every day. As I said, Cleveland, Ohio is hosting this game here. Right now, Baltimore improved to 9-4 after they beat Pittsburgh in an ugly game. It was like 16-14. And I don't know if you saw my notes from last week. I go, this one realistically could be 17-10. I think my final was 17-9. So I was a little off, and it wasn't perfect. Heck, nobody is, especially me. And when we look at this one, Baltimore tied for first place in the AFC North with the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore only accumulated 309 total yards of offense, but the Ravens held Pittsburgh to 329 total yards, and that's nuts because Pittsburgh right now, it's not good. What are they going to do with Kenny Pickett? Not my business. When we look at Cleveland here, they're looking to bounce back, but how many, what fire do they have left after being eliminated? They lost the Battle of Ohio to Cincinnati here. Cleveland 5-8, third in the AFC North, and they're 4 games back. So Cleveland, they lost 23-10, excuse me. Cleveland gained 344 total yards. Watson passed for 276 yards. So what will be there? Let's talk about this game, shall we? And we're going to start with the quarterbacks because from everything I've seen, Lamar Jackson is inactive today. He's not playing. We wish him the best. Maybe I don't know. Could Lamar Jackson have played tonight? If there was like massive, playoff implications, maybe. But that Baltimore sees this one as if we do what we need to do on defense, that'll kind of get us through. So we're giving the ball to Tyler Huntley here, and again, Huntley has proven to be a very serviceable, reasonable quarterback when needed in a pinch here. When you look at Tyler Huntley, $15,000 on FanDuel, 9.6 on DK. Cleveland right now 10th overall against opposing quarterbacks. I'm expecting Tyler Huntley 18-19 completions, 185 to 190 passing yards. But what we like about Huntley is those carries, those rushing yards. I have him 8-9 carries, another 50 yards. So you're looking at what, 220, 230 all-purpose yards. That would be on the high end. That would be over ambitious on the high end here. And I do think Tyler Huntley is responsible for 2 quarterbacks. In what way? Again, does it matter? I guess if you're making specific sports books bets. But Tyler Huntley right now, 2 touchdowns. Let's just call it 1 in the air, 1 on the ground. More than likely to Mark Andrews, but we will get there. On the flip side, Deshaun Watson, 14-5 on FanDuel, 10-4 on DK. Baltimore, 22nd overall against opposing quarterbacks. And we've seen Watson. Is he still knocking off the rust? Is he that surefire stud QB1 that we've seen? I'm going to leave that alone. I don't want to get my personal opinions involved in this video about, awful human beings. So we'll leave that alone. But when you look at Watson, 20 to 21 completions, 240 or so yards, and around 7 or 8 carries for another 30 yards. And he's responsible for a touchdown or 2. In what way possible? I'm going to guess he's going to throw one and run one in, and he'll get the legs moving in this one. When we go to the running backs here, all the news, recent news has been about J.K. Dobbins. He ripped off that big 40, 50-yard run, and it didn't look good. He looked like he was in pain. It didn't look like he was stretching out. His stride was like very, very short, right? And he kept it, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not I don't go around and check out players and things. I'm not a scout, let's say. I just talk DFS. So J.K. Dobbins, if they deem him healthy enough to get carries and play in a football game, then there's just no way. You're saying it out loud, right? There's just no way J.K. Dobbins is 100%. Is he even 80%? But hey, Cleveland right now, 30th overall against opposing running backs. J.K. Dobbins, 11 grand on FanDuel, 9-2 on DK. I have J.K., 12, 13 carries, 55 to 60 yards. You love that. That's almost 5.5 yards a clip. If it's in the 10 to 11 carry range at 50 or 60 yards, and 1 or 2 receptions, nothing crazy, 5 or 6 yards. We're going to save those receptions for a guy like, is it Kenyon Drake will get a reception or 2? Is it going to be Gus Edwards? I don't know, but Gus Edwards, 10 grand on FanDuel, 6-2 on DK, looking at 10 or 11 carries for about 50 yards. So Gus is in play, but I hate the idea that JK, their supposed stud, is 11,000 on FanDuel, but when you look at Gus Edwards, he's $10,000. I mean, and when we think of single game slates, at least I do, correct me if I'm wrong here, but when it comes to FanDuel, at least that 10,000 or more range, it speaks to me and goes, well, if you're going to be 10,000 or more dollars, you really have to get it moving and get it going to hit value, because 10 grand knocked off of a single game slate when you're building a line is a massive chunk of change here. So if you want to roll the dice with Gus Edwards, have at it. Actually, I am too. I love the idea of both JK and Gus Edwards in tandem here. MVP flex and vice versa. That old move. It's nothing special, but I love to do that, especially this week, given the fact that Cleveland 30th overall against opposing running backs. Do we see a Kenyon Drake sighting here? I think we do. 7 grand on FanDuel, 5-2 on DK, and 1 or 2 carries, 5 yards, 1 or 2 receptions for another 10 yards. So it's very, very low. The idea of him really going nuts and putting up 40 or 50 yards is strange here. But again, single game slate, we're honing in on just the one game. I'd rather get a goose egg or have 3.4 points or 2.8 points, something crazy like that, and get over with the rest of my line than just fade Kenyon Drake completely. And what if he puts up 15 or 20 yards and a touchdown? In a single game slate, you'll be behind if you don't have that action in there with all the other guys that are hitting left and right. Nick Chubb, now we're talking. Baltimore, however, is 6th overall against opposing running backs, but Nick Chubb, a guy that's going to see volume. That's always his business. He's low, he's quick to the ground, always moving his legs. Nick Chubb, 16.5 on FanDuel, $9,800 on DraftKings, 19 carries, 75 to 80 yards. As let's say Nick Chubb's floor is probably about 70 yards, so anything after that would be gravy or Christmas gravy, however you want to put it. Nick Chubb, again, 2 to 3 receptions, 15 to 18 yards in that range, and we can lock in Nick Chubb for a touchdown on the ground, almost written in the stars. When we look at Kareem Hunt, 9.5 on FanDuel, $5,000 even on DraftKings, and Kareem Hunt is he's been in bottom of the barrel a whole heck of a lot in the early part of the season, but as the season has gone on, he's in and out, right, of my DFS work, because they're giving so much stuff to Nick Chubb, and now with Deshaun Watson being quarterback, I'm not saying that relegates Kareem Hunt to the bench and he's unusable. We can't play. I almost said we cannot play with him. We cannot play him. I don't think that's the case. We have to pick and choose, and I think tonight's a good starting point to use Kareem Hunt. 7-8 targets, 25 to 30 yards. Looking at a 2 or 3, a trio of receptions here for another 20 yards. So 45 to 50 yards is a nice ending point or a box score for Kareem Hunt. The move here is if Kareem Hunt can find the end zone, specifically on a reception, on a swing pass, some sort of slant. Maybe it's 3rd and long, and Watson's getting, the pocket collapses and he needs to get the ball out quick inside the 30 or 40 yard line in Cleveland zone, and he flicks the ball out to Kareem Hunt, and it just aligns, and boom, Hunt's in the end zone. I like that call. I like that idea. When we look at the wide receivers, there's not a lot going on here. I mean, Amari Cooper, DPJ would be sweet, but let's start with Baltimore's wide receivers. First and foremost, Devin Duvernay, Demarcus Robertson, Deshaun Jackson have a little bit of Christmas magic left in his tank here. James Prochy II. Let's start with Devin Duvernay, 8 grand on FanDuel, 4.8 on DK, 4-5 targets, 3-4 receptions, around 25 yards. But what I love about Duvernay tonight is I think that they give Duvernay a carry or two for around 10 to 12 yards. So his price tag is very fantasy friendly for this afternoon, this evening. In Cleveland right now, 20th overall against opposing wide receivers. Demarcus Robinson, the longtime Kansas City Chief, is now with the Ravens, and he's seeing some action. He's getting involved. We look at D-Rob, $8,000 on FanDuel, 5-6 on DK, 6-7 targets, 4 to 5 receptions. I think 40 yards is a nice, good, flat number for a floor here, or right in the middle. I don't think that's his ceiling. I don't think that's his floor, but 40 yards seems about right for this afternoon. Deshaun Jackson, 7-5 on FanDuel, 4-4 on DK, the consummate home run hitter, right? He's got 1 or 2 receptions and 75 yards and 2 scores. I mean, am I predicting that today against the 20th ranked overall Cleveland Browns? Not really, but would any of us be shocked if we saw that happen? He has literally made a living off playing like this, returning punts. I think those days are behind him. And again, Deshaun Jackson in the twilight of his career, but I do still think he serves a purpose on the slate here. Deshaun Jackson, 3 to 4 targets. That's very healthy, and given the home run hitting, speed or power of Deshaun Jackson, 3 or 4 targets, 2 or 3 receptions, 25 to 30 yards. When we look at the Cleveland Browns side of things, it's got to be all about Amari Cooper, right? Baltimore right now, 26th overall against opposing wide receivers. Coop, 12-5 on FanDuel, 9-4 on DK, and I'm looking at 8 or 9 targets, 5 to 6 receptions, 75 yards, and a score for Cooper in this one. Cooper has long been would we call Amari Cooper a PPR stud, a PPR monster? But now with Cleveland here, to be honest with you, aside from Kareem Hunt, he's realistically the only game in town for that offense, and come to find out, they're actually using him that way. So give me Amari Cooper as a must-have here in this game. As we move down the list, DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's come on strong. It's just a lovely thing to see. DPJ has been in bottom of the barrel last season, a little bit to start in the middle of this season as well. DPJ, 11-5 on FanDuel, 8-2 on DK, 6-7 targets, 4 to 5 receptions, 50 yards. And to be fair, I maybe this is crazy, or maybe I'm going to jinx it all, but I like Amari Cooper for a touchdown, and I like DPJ for a touchdown as well. But my final score, I just don't see that happening, because if Kareem Hunt scores and Cooper scores, that's 14, and I have Cleveland right around that 17-point range. So I don't have 3 projected touchdowns in me for Cleveland. So we could take away the touchdown for Cooper and give it to DPJ, and vice versa here. So realistically, let's get all 3 in the lineup. Chubb, Hunt, Chubb, Cooper, and DPJ. Again, Cooper MVP flex. Same thing with DPJ. We'll move them around here. Demetric Felton, no thank you. Michael Woods II, no thank you. Just be aware, one more time, Cleveland 26th overall against opposing wide receivers. I do think Amari Cooper and DPJ, we're looking at, what did I say? 8 or 9 targets for Cooper, 6 or 7 targets for DPJ. Both wide receivers are going to be heavily involved in this game. Don't set a lineup without at least one. And if you're like me, I'm going to have both guys in a lot of lineups. When we look at the tight ends, it's all about Mark Andrews, right? But when we look at Cleveland, they're 7th overall against opposing tight ends. Mark Andrews is one of those guys where, does that stuff even, does he even need to be, talked about DVP because he's so good? Well, Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson is the reason why. Is it the quarterback that makes a tight end, or is it the tight end that makes the quarterback? Any which way you slice it, I do think Tyler Huntley can kind of use Mark Andrews as a safety blanket. And I know Tyler Huntley isn't a rookie, and I know he's not, in the backfield, all starry-eyed and unfocused here. But to me, Mark Andrews at $13,000 on FanDuel, 7-6 on DK is it causes a problem, right, for Cleveland here. It's just a mismatch problem in the way Mark Andrews, the routes that Mark Andrews runs, the looks that he sees on those routes are just too juicy and too nice to ignore. Mark Andrews, 7 or 8 targets, 5 or 6 receptions, yes, for Mark Andrews, and around 55 to 60 yards, and a lock. To me, Mark Andrews, a lock for a touchdown. Get him in your lineups. Isaiah Likely, the young kid, the rookie, was working a lot with Lamar Jackson. He looked like he was, jumping up the list here in absence of Mark Andrews. And now, given the Baltimore Ravens wide receiver room, I think we can bump up Isaiah Likely just basically as another wide receiver here as they line him out wide. Mark Andrews is in on the line, Isaiah Likely on the outside, and they just causing havoc this afternoon for the Cleveland Browns. Isaiah Likely, 6'5" on FanDuel, $2,800 on DK, 2 to 3 targets, 1 or 2 receptions, about 15 to 20 yards. But again, what happens if he scores a touchdown? I'd rather have him in than out, and I know I've said that for every guy on the slate here, and there's only 5 or 6 spots. On FanDuel, there's, I believe, 5 players. On DraftKings, it's an extra player or 2, so make sure Andrews and Likely are they're one of my favorite combos, along with Amari Cooper and DPJ. Again, that's 4 different lines right there, because we'll take Cooper, DPJ, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely, and MVP flex. And we're just going to run that whole gamut there, right? One guy MVP and the rest flex, and we're just going to bump them up. Boom, bump, bump. Bump, bump, bump. And then when we look at the Cleveland tight ends here, David Njoku, 8.5 on FanDuel, $7,000 on DK, 5-6 targets, 4 or 5 receptions for Njoku. It's going to be great to see him here this afternoon. 45 to 50 yards. Baltimore right now 18th overall against opposing tight ends. What are we going to do with Harrison Bryant? $7,000 on FanDuel, $2,200 on DK, 2-3 targets, 1 or 2 receptions, 15 yards. When we look at the kickers here, and I'm moving fast because I really talk a lot at the beginning of these videos, and before you know it, I'm not even halfway through and it's already 15 minutes into the video. Of the kickers, it's all about Justin Tucker. Cleveland 21st overall in giving away points to opposing kickers. Tucker 9.5 on FanDuel, $4,000 on DK, 3 for 3 extra points, 2 for 2 field goals. He is a stone cold stud. When we look at the DSTs, realistically, I don't know how much action I want from either one of them, but hey, each one will serve a purpose. I have the Ravens, 2 or 3 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. So that just screams we need to put the Ravens on the map on our DFS list right now. Ravens 8.5 on FanDuel, 3.6 on DK. If you're going to be wild and crazy, again, single game slate, anything goes, everything is on the table. I'm just here to kind of help dig through it, wade through all this stuff. The Browns, $9,000 on FanDuel, 4.6 on DK. I have them for a sack or 2 and even an interception. So let's get you some recent betting trends. I'll get you the heck out of here, and then we can talk about Miami and Buffalo in the snow game, which I don't know what the heck's going to happen. They're going to be playing in toboggans. I don't know. When we look at right now, Baltimore 5-2 against the spread. Their last 7 games on the road. The under has hit in 8 of Baltimore's last 10 games. Cleveland 5-11 against the spread. Their last 16 games against an AFC opponent. And last but not least, the over has cashed in 4 of the Browns' last 6 games at home. So to me, it's all about the stars and the studs. We'll implement a little bit of DPJ, Justin Tucker, toss in the Ravens DST, and I have Baltimore winning this one comfortably, and they're getting 2.5 points. It's just a match made in heaven. Give me the Baltimore Ravens to win this one, 27-17. Be good, be safe, and I will see you very soon as we talk about Buffalo and Miami. Shoot, Ravens win 27-17. See you later. Bye.